Hello people in my phone. Welcome to my channel. So, I still don't know what to call these kinds of videos yet, but I'll be explaining and summarizing the plots of novels, especially classic ones, using their movie adaptations, real quotes from the book, and audiobook clips. So if you don't feel like reading 300 plus pages, or if classics are just too hard to get through, then you've come to the right place. Today's video is about the 1847 novel, Wuthering Heights by Emily Brontë. The chapters in this video aren't arranged or titled the same way as in the book. I made those up. The quotes, though, are taken directly from the novel. Some are shortened or reassembled to fit the story flow. Everything will be told from the perspective of Mrs. Dean, or Nellie, the housekeeper.
I have just returned from a visit to my landlord, the solitary neighbour that I shall be troubled with. This is certainly a beautiful country. In all England, I do not believe that I could have fixed on a situation so completely removed from the stir of society. A perfect misanthropist's heaven.
Mr. Lockwood is the new tenant of Thrushcross Grange. One day, he shows up for dinner at the nearby house of Wuthering Heights, where his landlord, Mr. Heathcliff, lives. He steps inside and instantly notices a whole lineup of people. A young woman who he assumes is Mrs. Heathcliff.
She never opened her mouth. I stared. She stared also. At any rate, she kept her eyes on me in a cool, regardless manner, exceedingly embarrassing and disagreeable.
A housekeeper, a young man.
I began to doubt whether he were a servant or not. His dress and speech were both rude, entirely devoid of the superiority observable in Mr. and Mrs. Heathcliff. His whiskers encroached bearishly over his cheeks, and his hands were embrowned like those of a common labourer.
And another servant just lurking around. Being snowed in, Lockwood is forced to remain at the Heights overnight. The housekeeper leads him to a room to crash in. So inside the room, he sees Catherine Earnshaw, Catherine Linton, and Catherine Heathcliff written all over the wall. He also finds some old books and decides to read them.
I discovered my candlewick reclining on one of the antique volumes, and perfuming the place with an odour of roasted calf skin. It was a testament in lean type and smelling dreadfully musty. A flyleaf bore the inscription, Catherine Earnshaw, her book, and a date some quarter of a century back. I shut it and took up another and another till I had examined all. Catherine's library was select, and its state of dilapidation proved it to have been well used, though not altogether for a legitimate purpose. Scarcely one chapter had escaped, a pen and ink commentary, at least the appearance of one, covering every morsel of blank that the printer had left. Some were detached sentences, other parts took the form of a regular diary, scrawled in an unformed, childish hand.
While reading, he suddenly sees a cold, dead hand of a ghostly woman trying to break through the bedroom window. She tells him she actually says that. Anyways, Lockwood survives the night of ghost drama, and in the morning, Lockwood asks Mrs. Dean, the housekeeper, who has been working in Wuthering Heights for like 18 years, to spill the tea on all the people who lived in Wuthering Heights. And besties, now buckle up because we're gonna go back in time and unpack all the chaos that went down in this house. In Wuthering Heights, there was Mr. Earnshaw, Mrs. Earnshaw, and their two children, Henley and Catherine. Now, Mrs. Dean's mother was a servant there, so she grew up with the Earnshaws and would later be their servant. Also, everyone calls her Nellie. One day, Mr. Earnshaw returns from a business trip to Liverpool with a homeless orphan boy he found on the streets and names him Heathcliff.
A dirty, ragged, black-haired child, big enough both to walk and talk. Indeed, its face looked older than Catherine's, yet when it was set on its feet, It only stared round and repeated over and over again some gibberish that nobody could understand. Starving and houseless and as good as dumb in the streets of Liverpool, where he picked it up and inquired for its owner. Not a soul knew to whom it belonged.
So no last name, no backstory, just Heathcliff. Henley hates him instantly, but Catherine is like, bet new BFF. Mr. Earnshaw really likes him and treats him almost like his son, and because of that, Henley grows jealous of Heathcliff, bullies and insults him all the time, and is just always mean to him, beats him up every chance he gets.
He would stand Henley's blows without winking or shedding a tear, and my pinches moved him only to draw in a breath. This endurance made old Earnshaw furious when he discovered his son persecuting the poor fatherless child, as he called him. He took to Heathcliff strangely, believing all he said.
Mrs. Earnshaw, though, didn't like him, but she wasn't absolutely atrocious to him. Catherine becomes pretty quick friends with Heathcliff, spending hours playing on the moors together. They grow inseparable, and the two of them are menaces to society. A couple of years later, Mrs. Earnshaw dies. Henley gets sent off to college, and then Mr. Earnshaw dies.
She would sing him to sleep. She began singing very low, till his fingers dropped from hers and his head sank on his breast. I ran to the children's room. Their door was ajar. I saw they had never lain down, though it was past midnight, but they were calmer, and did not need me to console them. The little souls were comforting each other with better thoughts than I could have hit on.
Henley comes back for the funeral, bringing a wife with him, whose name is Frances, and also hates Heathcliff. Hindley takes advantage of inheriting Wuthering Heights.
Get your stuff and move in with the animals where you belong.
He makes Heathcliff live with them as a servant, do manual labor in the field, and takes away his education, basically kicks him out. He also always punishes him and Catherine for spending time together, but that never really worked though. They start to develop actual feelings for each other and just keep seeing each other regardless.
One Sunday evening, I went to call them to supper. I could discover them nowhere. We searched the house, above and below, and the yard and stables. They were invisible, and at last, Hindley in a passion told us to bolt the doors and swore nobody should let them in that night. I, too, anxious to lie down, opened my lattice and put my head out to hearken, determined to admit them in spite of the prohibition should they return. In a while, I distinguished steps coming up the road. I threw a shawl over my head and ran to prevent them from waking Mr. Earnshaw by knocking. There was Heathcliff by himself.
They both run away to the nearby house of Thrushcross Grange to see the lives of the people living there. So at Thrushcross Grange, we have Mr. Linton, Mrs. Linton, and their two children, Edgar and Isabella. Catherine and Heathcliff get caught spying on Edgar and Isabella through the window. Catherine gets bitten by the Lintons' dog, and because the people at the Grange end up recognizing her as the daughter of the Earnshaws, they let her in to be looked after and inform Henley on the incident. Heathcliff, on the other side, gets beaten up by the Linton servant and is sent back to the Heights to be also beaten by Henley. Catherine ends up staying at the Grange for 5 weeks and gets sent back home almost unrecognizable. She's become a proper little lady now, and she's got manners.
Cathy, catching a glimpse of her friend in his concealment, flew to embrace him. She bestowed 7 or 8 kisses on his cheek within the second, and then stopped, and drawing back burst into a laugh. How very black and cross you look, and how funny and grim. But that's because I'm used to Edgar and Isabella Linton. You are so dirty.
I like being dirty.
Nellie skips the story to the summer of the next year. Henley and Frances have a baby boy named Hareton. Shortly after his birth, Frances dies, and the baby is left to Nellie to raise. Henley doesn't take Frances's death well and starts to descend into alcoholism.
He grew desperate. His sorrow was of that kind that will not lament. He neither wept nor prayed. He cursed and defied, execrated God and man, and gave himself up to reckless dissipation. The servants could not bear his tyrannical and evil conduct long. I could not half tell what an infernal house we had. The curate dropped calling, and nobody decent came near us at last, unless Edgar Linton's visits to Miss Cathy might be an exception.
A few years later,
he had reached the age of 16 then, I think. and without having bad features or being deficient in intellect, he contrived to convey an impression of inward and outward repulsiveness that his present aspect retains no traces of. In the first place, he had by that time lost the benefit of his early education. Continual hard work, begun soon and concluded late, had extinguished any curiosity he once possessed in pursuit of knowledge, and any love for books or learning. His childhood sense of superiority, instilled into him by the favours of old Mr. Earnshaw, was faded away. He struggled long to keep up an equality with Catherine in her studies, and yielded with poignant though silent regret, but he yielded completely.
Heathcliff grows jealous as he watches Catherine spend more time with Edgar than with him.
Look at the almanac on that wall. He pointed to a framed sheet hanging near the window and continued, "The crosses are for the evenings you have spent with the Lintons, the dots for those spent with me. Do you see? I've marked every day."
One day, Catherine goes to talk to Nellie in the kitchen, thinking that they're alone, but Heathcliff is also there, just hidden away, overhearing everything they say.
"Edgar Linton has asked me to marry him. I accepted him, Nellie. Be quick, and say whether I was wrong. Why do you love him, Miss Cathy?" "Well, because he is handsome and pleasant to be with, and because he loves me, and he will be rich, and I shall like to be the greatest woman of the neighbourhood, and I shall be proud of having such a husband. And now, let us hear what you are unhappy about. You will escape from a disorderly, comfortless home into a wealthy, respectable one, and you love Edgar, and Edgar loves you. Where is the obstacle? It would degrade me to marry Heathcliff now, so he shall never know how I love him."
At this part of their conversation, Heathcliff gets up and leaves.
"And that, not because he's handsome, Nellie, but because he's more myself than I am. Whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same. My great miseries in this world have been Heathcliff's miseries, and I watched and felt each from the beginning. My great thought in living is himself. If all else perished, and he remained, I should still continue to be. Nellie, I am Heathcliff. He's always, always in my mind, not as a pleasure, any more than I am always a pleasure to myself, but as my own being."
A few hours after their conversation, Nellie tells Catherine that they can't find Heathcliff anywhere. Catherine runs outside in the freezing rain to find him, but she never does because he's ran away. 3 years later, Edgar and Catherine get married, and she and Nellie move to Thrushcross Grange. Everything seems to be fine for a while, until after 3 years, Heathcliff makes his comeback.
On a mellow evening in September, I was coming from the garden with a heavy basket of apples, which I had been gathering, when I heard a voice behind me say, "Nellie, is that you?"
Is she here?
So he shows up at Thrushcross Grange Garden, except that now he's a gentleman, educated and wealthy. He's also staying at Wuthering Heights after acquiring the debts Henley has gotten himself into through his drunkenness and gambling. And now Henley is in debt to Heathcliff, who is plotting revenge for the hell Henley put him through when he was younger.
"I shall pay Henley back. I don't care how long I wait if I can only do it at last. I hope he will not die before I do."
And all the people who have wronged him in general. But once he sees Catherine for the first time in 3 years,
My plan was to see your face, get revenge on Hindley, and then kill myself. But I have changed my mind.
He took a seat opposite Catherine, who kept her gaze fixed on him as if she feared he would vanish were she to remove it.
How could you not think of me all this time?
Heathcliff and Catherine spend the next few days together to make up for the years they spent apart with Isabella, Edgar's sister, in case you forgot, accompanying them. Isabella then becomes infatuated with Heathcliff, who he treats like shit.
You must have some stories to tell.
There is nothing I want to remember.
But eventually, he pretends to love her back to get back at her brother and maybe make Catherine regret marrying Edgar. Catherine's jealousy started to show as she had a fight with him about it and was stuck in a heavy, depressive episode. A few months later, Isabella runs away to live with Heathcliff at Wuthering Heights. We also find out that Catherine is pregnant. She's also very sick. When Heathcliff knows about her sickness, he immediately visits her.
Mrs. Linton sat in a loose white dress with a light shawl over her shoulders, in a stride or two was at her side and had her grasped in his arms.
You killed me.
I plainly saw that he could hardly bear, for downright agony, to look into her face. The same conviction had stricken him as me from the instant he beheld her, that there was no prospect of ultimate recovery there. She was fated, sure to die. He attempted to rise, but she seized his hair and kept him down.
Will you be happy when I am in the air?
I wish I could hold you till we were both dead. I shouldn't care what you suffered. I care nothing for your sufferings. Why shouldn't you suffer? I do? Will you say 20 years hence, that's the grave of Catherine Earnshaw? I loved her long ago, and was wretched to lose her, but it is past.
Will you forget me?
Don't torture me till I'm as mad as yourself, wrenching his head free and grinding his teeth. Do you reflect that all those words will be branded in my memory, and eating deeper eternally after you have left me?
I have not killed you. I could no more forget you myself.
He walked to the fireplace where he stood, silent, with his back towards us. In her eagerness, she rose and supported herself on the arm of the chair. Catherine made a spring, and he caught her, and they were locked in an embrace from which I thought my mistress would never be released alive. In fact, to my eyes she seemed directly insensible, and she retained in her closed fingers a portion of the locks she had been grasping. She put up her hand to clasp his neck and bring her cheek to his as he held her, while he, in return, covering her with frantic caresses. Why did you betray your own heart, Cathy? You have killed yourself. You loved me. Then what right had you to leave me? Because misery and degradation and death and nothing that God or Satan could inflict would have parted us. You, of your own will, did it. I have not broken your heart. You have broken it. And in breaking it, you have broken mine. They were silent, their faces hid against each other and washed by each other's tears. Catherine's arms had fallen relaxed, and her head hung down.
Edgar suddenly comes in. Catherine faints in Heathcliff's arms. He carries her and asks Edgar to help her. Heathcliff keeps waiting outside the Grange to make sure Catherine is okay. Before he leaves that night, Catherine gives birth to her baby girl, who's also named Catherine Linton, and then, a few hours after birth, Catherine dies.